Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today I'll be playing Mono Red Extinction Bombardment in the Explorer format. And you'll be asking yourself, why do we want to be playing Extinction Bombardment? Well, I mean, look at Star of Extinction. It's just incredible. It destroys a land, deals 20 damage to each creature, each planeswalker. It's just literal cataclysmic meteor shower on your opponent. The other thing that goes with it is an Arcane Bombardment. It's an enchantment that when we cast our first instant or sorcery spell each turn, we exile a random instant or sorcery from our graveyard and then copy each thing exiled with Arcane Bombardment. So it keeps building up. First time you get one, second time you get two, and then you just keep snowballing from there. And you may be noticing that this is 6 mana, Star is 7 mana, so it ties the room together. It's Irencrag Feat. It's a ritual that can add 7 red mana, but it only lets us cast one more spell this turn. So we cast Irencrag Feat, and we can either use a Star or Arcane Bombardment. And so how do we actually win? Well, we win by getting an Arcane Bombardment onto the battlefield and eventually tucking one of our direct damage spells under it, like Royal Eruption or Play with Fire, and then give it enough cycles, we'll eventually burn them out by casting those. So that's how we win. We also have some creature lands in here for good measure. Other support pieces include Unexpected Windfall, once again, just card selection and trying to vault us up into the higher mana. Fable and Mirror Breaker for the same reason. Igneous Inspiration is some extra direct damage, but also can pull things from our sideboard. So I have some lessons here to get lands or deal with stuff. Seize the Spoils like a baby Unexpected Windfall. And because we really want a high instant sorcery density here, we play a number of MDFCs. So we play 4 Valakut Awakenings here as lands or spells if we need them. And it also gives us some selection for the very clunky hands you can imagine we end up with. Do not play Shatter Skull Smashing because that's a really bad hit off Arcane Bombardment. So I want to point out this is actually version 1.1 of this deck. Game 1 of the ones you're about to watch is actually a slightly different version with version 1, with essentially 2 Seize the Spoils replaced by 2 copies of Wish, which allows us to get a card we own from outside the game. So in the first game, I had a mixture of lessons and some other nice hits like Banefire and stuff, because I was really, often we're getting Irencrag Feat stuck under Arcane Bombardment, so could really vault our mana production. So that was the idea with Wish, but it turned out to be pretty clunky, which led to version 1.1 here. And version 1.1 honestly didn't do super well. Okay, sorry. The other thing version 1.1 had is these Crawling Barrens, also to sink Irencrag Feat mana into profitably. So this didn't turn out to be quite right, and so we moved on to version 2 partway through the games. Okay, and this is version 2, where things really seem to be clicking. So it's the same core as before, but with some noticeable changes. Took out some of the burn spells and some of the card draw and put in some Cleansing Wildfires, which destroys the land and lets the controller put a basic into play tapped, and then you get to draw a card. So we have the Cleansing Wildfire package to back up our other land destruction we have going on, and an indestructible land package here. We have split between Cascading Cataracts and Darksteel Citadel. So that allows us to target our indestructible lands, and it's a ramp piece there. So it can allow us to blow up extra annoying creature lands or ramp us. Also took out the big scores and just changed it to be all Seize the Spoils, just a little cheaper, and just helps us get the ball rolling sooner. And things are pretty close to the same otherwise. Part of the reason we made the changes because I felt like the 4 Star of Extinctions wasn't enough. Like, opponents were able to kill us before we could cast it or kill us before we could find it. So also added 2 copies of Burn Down the House. which is a 5-mana sorcerer that either deals 5 to each creature in Planeswalker or creates 3/1/1 red devil tokens. This one's nice because, you know, we can play it as a board wipe, deal 5 to each thing. But if it gets tucked under Arcane Bombardment, then we just make devil tokens with it. And even if the devil tokens get wiped out by Star of Extinction, well, that's direct damage toward the opponent. So it turns out it fits pretty nice, and it seemed to be like one of the missing pieces. I am less certain about this, but I also have 2 copies of Scrabbling Claws, so it's one of the weaker graveyard hate pieces, but it's easy to cycle away in matchups where it's not great, and it actually allows the person to choose which card they exile, so it's good on using on our own graveyard to sort of pre-select what Arcane Bombardment can hit. So that's the justification behind it. Sideboard, just lessons now. So in 2 environmental sciences, start with Scratch for some artifact destruction, Containment Breach to hit artifacts or enchantments. This hits any permanent, and Mascot Expedition. So we only have 2 Igneous Inspiration, but if it gets tucked on Arcane Bombardment, then we will really start emptying our sideboard out. We can play these off-color things because we have so many treasures between Fable the Mirror Breaker and Seize the Spoils. So these are some cards I was also considering, but ultimately did not make the cut. But yeah, it's a wild idea. There's a lot of sort of crazy things going on, but yeah, let's see what happens inside some games. All right, well, check out this opening hand. 2 lands and about 20 mana worth of spells, so it's definitely a snap keep. And yeah, we need a 3rd land or else we're just dead. Okay, so we draw the land. We still might just die, but now we have a chance. All right, so opponent has the awesome Vampire basics. They follow up with the Crawling Barrens, though, so that's a little confusing, but not completely unheard of. And yeah, in our turn 3, we just run out Fable the Mirror Breaker, really hoping that Goblin Token lives to get us to the magical 4 mana for Irencrag Feet. Discarding for Fable the Mirror Breaker. Our hand's just incredibly clunky right now, so decide to pitch an Irencrag Feet and a Star of Extinction to it to see what we draw. Okay, so grab a Den of the Bugbear, which is tapped. So, however, we do have 4 mana, so the question is, we came... Anyway, the longest term upside is to do Arcane Bombardment right now, instead of just firing off the Star of Extinction. So I opt to just get the Arcane Bombardment in play, and then see what we spin into next turn. Okay, another colorless land. Solemn Simulacrum. So already opponents giving off clues like there's some sort of big mana artifact deck. We're reading into this as an aficionado of that type of deck. Colorless Super Friends or like colorless artifacts. Now we're hoping a Star of Extinction goes off here, so we don't really care about this trade right now. So opponent gets their card off their Solemn Simulacrum. And we're going to fire off Warlord's Fury to see what we spin into with Arcane Bombardment. Okay, so we do not hit the star in our graveyard, but we hit Irencrag Feet, which is going to cast the star. Well, not the star in our hand, but the extra Arcane Bombardment. So just playing it patient, and with 2 Arcane Bombardments in play, it's just going to get real nasty for the opponent. So opponent plays another Vampire Plains, Forsaken Monument. So there it is. So they're a colorless deck, and Forsaken Monument is essentially like a souped up Mirari's Wake for their colorless lands. So they're going to have, at the moment, they're going to untap with 9 mana. So we're going to do something about that. So we cast an Unexpected Windfall on their turn, and that gets us 2 Arcane Bombardments to fire off. Alright, so we hit an Irencrag Feet. Does nothing. and we hit an Irencrag feat and a Warlord's. So we're just having the worst luck. Both our Star of Extinctions are still stranded in the graveyard. Fortunately, draw into a spell. Okay, so go ahead and attack because I don't foresee Reflections of Kiki Jiki living the turn. So with the configuration in our graveyard right now, we are going to hit a Star of Extinction. And there it is. So Star of Extinction, start knocking off their colorless lands, choosing the ones with the most upside first. Opt to not cast the Irencrag feat because I don't want to lock us out of our other Arcane Bombardment spells. Okay, so we get the other star on our second Arcane Bombardment and get to blow up another land. So we're going to hit the Field of Ruin, which could take out our Den of the Bugbear. So already just Star of Extinction's just going crazy. Okay, so flooding out a little bit, but thankfully have an ingenious something that's going to get us a lesson from our sideboard. Okay, so opponent plays Hedron Archive. Now that's going to help them weather the meteor storm a little bit. Okay, and Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Okay, so opponent has good ambition. So they already have the indestructible land that can filter the mana, so they just grab a Inventor's Fair. Okay, but we have big plans. Okay, so fire off Igneous Inspiration, direct damage to them, and let's start firing off more asteroids. Alright, so Star of Extinction, shoot down Inventor's Fair, Warlord's Fury, not casting Irencrag feat because we want to be able to keep casting stuff. Alright, so that takes out Golos and their Inventor's Fair, and we're just really trying to chop down their mana production. So Unexpected Windfall's great, can turn our lands into spells. Very happy about that. And another Star of Extinction, another Warlord's Fury. And we just don't need the rituals at this point, so we can decline that. Now, it was this game, this is the maiden voyage right here. We're already having incredible fun blowing up our opponent's lands. And it got me thinking, like, do we need a way to sink all the extra ritual mana into something? So I actually, in version 1.1, added some Crawling Barrens because, that's 7 mana is almost 2 activations of it. So turns out most games don't really go this way, and that's not super necessary. So now I'm just trying to decide if I should play something else, but honestly we don't really need to. And so I make a mistake here. You could see me, pass and then try and hit the upkeep stop, but I was too slow and missed it. But with instants in our deck, we should have set an upkeep stop on their turn, fired off the instant, and then blown up some of their lands to just really cripple their turn. If they had an instant, they could have fired it off, but we could have prevented this Ugin from even being cast had we done that. And so we're going to lose an Arcane Bombardment for that misplay, but already things are really bad. So we're going to Star of Extinction here, which does hit Planeswalkers, and so their Ugin's going to get cut down right now. But we're just drawing a billion cards. Star of Extinction, yeah, it's going to annihilate another land. This is just incredible, firing off so many Star of Extinctions. So even though we're going to be down to 1 Arcane Bombardment, that's just fine. And yeah, now we get to pick from our other collection. And I may notice that my sideboard only had a couple lessons. Version 1 was playing the card Wish. Had very big aspirations for how much mana and how much mana this deck could generate. So eventually change things around, but that's what we started out with. But the main wooden condition for this deck is eventually sticking burn spells under Arcane Bombardment inactive enough times to burn the opponent out. So that is the plan. But that was all on their turn. So now, opponent's at 16. We have one Arcane Bombardment left, so we're just going to fire off Warlord's Fury to see what happens. Use our whole collection of spells under Arcane Bombardment. So now we're starting to build up some burn spells underneath it. So play with fire, Igneous Inspiration, that's 5 direct damage. And we'll blow up the last land that we can blow up. And decide to actually fire off Irencrag Feet this time to just get a bunch of mana to turn on our double Den of the Bugbear. And, doing some calculations, with how much burn we're dealing them. Each den, when it attacks, is effectively 4 damage. So did some number crunching and realized that we just need a bunch of mana to attack with both copies of Den of the Bugbear and then just fire off our Royal Eruption afterward. But opponent was an extremely good sport, letting us to, take this all the way to its conclusion. But that's why we play this deck. Wow, was that fun. Now, followed up that glorious game with a bunch of losses. So here's me battling against an Assault Artifact deck. I think there's some misplays that put us in the danger zone here, but we were about to turn the corner here. Like, we were doing okay, but then opponent just had it. And Soul Artifact, hasty, or non-summoning sick kill right there. Here's another situation where we're able to just, looks like we're laying the hammer down on Angels, but the problem is the Bishop of Wings got them more spirit tokens, and by the time we got Arcane Bombardment out, we might have been able to keep fighting if we drew a spell. Sorry, an instant or sorcery, but Fable the Mirror Breaker didn't cut it there. Here's an instance where we fire off Star of Extinction, but they still have all their Witches' Ovens in play, and a cat in the graveyard, and so that's a lot of damage. And we could see Mayhem Devil being pulled right there, so we're a goner with how much damage they can pull out. And so now this is version 2 of the deck. This is the Cleansing Wildfire version. And Cleansing Wildfire seemed to fix a lot of problems that this deck had. It helps us churn through our cards, it gets us that card draw. But with the Indestructible lands in our deck now, it's also a ramp piece. If we pull an Indestructible land early, it can accelerate us into our really expensive spells. So this plays out incredible for us. Opponent doesn't know what we're doing, so it would have been basically game over had they Soul Artifact their Darksteel Citadel, but they went on the Ornithopter because that's like the bigger upside right there. But we are ready with our play with fire, so now we decide just to Cleansing Wildfire their land, hopefully trimming down their options a little bit, and thankfully have a play with fire open. So they grab a white source so they can play Ingenious Smith, and the Smith waiting to see what they grab. All right, so they get a Stone Coil Serpent. So, and do not have a land to follow up. So that's very noteworthy that they don't have a follow-up land. Decide just did not take any chances and play with fire their creature. And wow, we drew an untapped red source. So the question is, Yep, this is the situation we keep facing. Do we Irencrag feat out Star of Extinction or Arcane Bombardment? I think almost always you want to get Arcane Bombardment out. It's going to depend on the situation, but opponent's not pressuring us at this point. Arcane Bombardment has so much upside, so we will need a spell to kick it off, but Fable will help get us there at some point. Alright, so they have another Ingenious Smith, and they get a Ginger Brute, and still don't have a land. And wow, we find a sorcery, and that's why we're playing so many Valakut Awakenings, is they could function as lands, and we want a high instant sorcery count, so that's incredible. So we fire this off and just see what we can spin into with Arcane Bombardment, and we hit Irencrag feat, which is going to ritual out Star of Extinction for us. And honestly, sort of like our hand. And yeah, Star of Extinction. Blow up their only colored source. The opponent's been mana screwed, and we're preying on that right here. So destroy their creature, their one colored source. Pass to them, and they'd seen enough. Alright, on to the next game. Not the worst hand. It's incredibly slow since we drew all of our Valakut Awakening, so a lot of tap lands happening. A green-white land, and yep, it's Angels. So Youthful Valkyrie. Our Play with Fire does nothing to it. So we have so many tap lands that even though we could, play Cleansing Wildfire this turn, just trying to get the tap lands out of the way. Alright, so Inspiring Overseer is not it's probably one of the worst cards in their deck. It's not actively contributing to their gain chunks of 4 life to make tons of Angels plan. So thinking about, because I'm hoping to eventually use Burn Down the House and take care of everything, but just trying to just minimize the damage we're taking, end up just taking out the Inspiring Overseer. So decide to cast Seize the Spoils to hopefully guarantee Burn Down the House. Fable the Mirror Breaker might have been able to do the same thing, but wanted to really make sure, because notably that the Youthful Valkyrie is at 4 toughness, so it has to happen next turn. Okay, Speaker of the Heavens, and Resplendent Angel. Okay, so you could see here that this is going to work out really nice. So we have the untapped red source, and we could fire off Burn Down the House, 5 to each creature and Planeswalker. So that's just a back-breaking blow to them, and it was just in the nick of time, right as everything was still under 5 toughness. So, but opponent follows up with Ajani's Strength of the Pride, and makes an Ajani's Pride Mate. Okay, so we draw a land. Now we're still, this is 5 mana now, so we're still trying to figure things out. Definitely play Fable the Mirror Breaker now, and that should hopefully vault us up to close to 7 mana. So we blow up one of the green-white sources, and it could be that, it depends. It depends on it, but they may not actually play any basic forests in their deck because they're only playing green for Collected Company. So they grab a plains, and so it's interesting to see that they don't pull a forest out there, but they still have a green source for Collected Company, and they get some good ones right there. Bishop of Wings plus Righteous Valkyrie means that they can activate the Anthem on it, or that the Anthem is active. And now Ajani's Strength of the Pride is getting close to danger zone for us, where it can ultimate. Decided to just to block there just to save a bunch of damage. We had the Irencrag feat, so we knew that Star of Extinction was happening. Now here's a little sequencing thing here. We can only cast one spell after Irencrag feat, so play that and just making sure the Auto Tapper doesn't ruin my life here. We can Cleansing Wildfire on our indestructible land, Cascading Cataracts, to destroy it and get a land into play. So that's just basically put a land into play, draw a card. Still have 4 mana left for Irencrag feat. Star of Extinction hit their other green source. And opponent was probably feeling pretty good until that. Play a land, attack us for 1, but we've broken their spirit. Alright, well, that's Mono Red Extinction Bombardment. And I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed destroying my opponent's lands and creatures and planeswalkers, because that was incredible. I don't even know how many Star of Extinctions we cast, like 20 in that video, so that was just incredibly fun. And yeah, so this is a different style of video. It showed sort of the evolution of the idea. This is where we landed on with those last 2 victories, is using this list, and it's feeling even more better. The Cleansing Wildfire package, I think, really helps the deck do what it wants to. I'm a little worried about putting more colorless lands in here. We could up the indestructible land count, but it's a little tricky with Irencrag feat requiring triple red. So maybe it's fine with how many like pitched cards we have. So I could see maybe adding 1 or 2 more just to turn this more consistently into a ramp spell. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredibly fun. The other thing is that I think definitely needed the 2 other copies, or the 2 copies that Burned Down the House, to complement Star of Extinction as like just a way to stay alive. Because we do well in the extreme late game, but we need to get there. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments what do you think of this wacky deck idea, whether it actually is legit or not. So, and also, what are your favorite land destruction spells? Anyway, thank you for watching, and hope you have a wonderful day.